Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the webinar. Like Janet said, my name is Anna Marie Wood, and I will be talking to you today about the amazing benefits of a women's college and also a little bit more about Scripps. And I would like to say it is December and it's pretty warm today, so that's something that I think is just one amazing benefit of coming to Scripps in California, is that you also have the benefit of amazing weather. So let's get into some other things. So to start out with talking about the Women's College Advantage, I would say to simply define a women's college, it's a place that I find is supportive, challenging, empowering, and it's a place that focuses on building confidence inside and outside of the classroom. So what I love about women's colleges, and this is something that I find really true at Scripps, is that there may be students who are actively seeking a women's college experience, and that's how they come to us, and that's great. Or there may be students, and this was me in high school, that were not actively seeking a women's college experience, didn't know what a women's college experience would be like. I didn't know anyone who went to one. I didn't even know they existed until I learned about Scripps. But regardless of where you come from in your college research process, you get the benefits of going to a women's college. Whether you go to, Scripps or any women's college, there are so many amazing benefits. And so the way that I feel like, one of the greatest things about a women's college is that it's a place where women support other women, and it's a place where female leadership is the norm. If those things sound great to you, then you probably would like a women's college experience. I always like to talk about how, a women's college is also, when you go to a women's college, you have a normal college experience. I always like to just kind of lay that out. It's a very obvious fact. But when you go to a women's college, you're taking classes that are interesting to you, you're being challenged, you're supporting your peers, you're meeting people from all over the country, all over the world. Maybe you'll do internships, research with a faculty member. So those are things that you can do at any college like ours. But with the benefits of a women's college is that you get that added layer of support, empowerment, and confidence. And for me personally, I think the most important thing that I felt going to a women's college was seeing more people who look like me in positions of leadership. So it's a place, like I said, where female leadership dominates. 100% of leadership positions are held by women at a women's college, which is an obvious fact, right? I have another obvious fact for you. But it's that your student body president at a women's college year after year is probably going to be a woman, right? So you have this kind of guarantee of female leadership that you may see at a co-ed school, you may not, but the idea behind a women's college is that you are going to see more people who look like you in positions of leadership, and that adds to the sense of empowerment and confidence that you feel. But also importantly, it's that women get to actually practice their leadership skills. I was listening to a really good talk about women's colleges by a rep at Barnard, and she was saying how you can teach leadership. That is something that's a skill that you can teach people. But what's more important is actually being able to practice being a leader and practice leadership. And at a women's college, everybody gets the opportunity to practice leadership. And also importantly with that, you can practice those leadership skills in areas that maybe traditionally you wouldn't be able to take up space in. So at a women's college, women can take up space, right? So I read a lot of essays about being the only girl interested in physics, or the only girl interested in the stock market, or you want to go to med school, and that's, all these things that maybe traditionally could be male dominated in a lot of spaces. And at a women's college, they're not. So women's colleges are a place where we disproportionately graduate amazing female leaders to take on the world in male-dominated spaces, but also just in whatever you find interesting. Our graduates go on to do amazing things. There's really great stats about, women are much more likely to pursue STEM after a women's college. They take up roles in Fortune 500 companies with business and entrepreneurship. But I think at the end of the day, what's fantastic about a women's college experience is you can think about, how do I be the best version of myself? Who came before me to make this possible for me? And how can I make the world better for women who come after me? And at the end of the day, that's really what a women's college is about, regardless of what field you want to go into after your undergraduate time. So what I loved about my women's college experience was just being at a space where I felt like I wasn't limited by my gender. I was encouraged to speak up in the classroom when I agreed, but also when I disagreed. Disagreeing with your professor is always something really fun to do when you're in college. And at a women's college, you're taught that you have a voice and you should use it more. So overall, a women's college experience is one that is really, truly dedicated to the success of women. And you see that inside the classroom and outside of the classroom. So I'll go ahead and talk a little bit more about who I am. So there's a photo of me at graduation at Scripps with my parents. I am a graduate of Scripps College, and I'm currently the Senior Assistant Director of Admission. I'm also the first in my family to graduate with a 4-year college degree. So this graduation day was a very special day, not just for me, but also for my parents. And when I decided to go to Scripps, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I wasn't totally sure about the women's college experience. I liked Scripps for a lot of other reasons. But then after having graduated from Scripps, really my favorite thing about it was that it was a women's college, and I grew to be so much more confident. I decided to major in anthropology, which is actually a joint major with another college across the street from us, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And when I think about what the favorite parts of my job are, it actually does kind of relate to my major. I majored in anthropology because I found studying different cultures and the human experience across the world, I find that so fascinating still today. That's why I chose my major as anthropology. And when I think about what I love about my job, it's meeting people, it's talking to people across the country, across the world about Scripps. It's learning about your own background and experiences in the application process. I love all of that stuff. That's why I wanted to do admission, and that's why 6 or 7 years now I've been doing admission, and I absolutely love my job. So those are a couple of different things about me, and I'm originally from Southern California, so I've always been used to warm weather, so come here. All right, and I want to talk about where I am. So you can see behind me, there's a book, bookshelves. So I'm in something called the browsing room at Scripps. Scripps is a very heavily, residential college. We have 11 residence halls on campus. Almost everyone lives on campus for the whole 4-year experience. Housing is guaranteed. And in every single residence hall, we have these things called browsing rooms. And they're like little mini libraries. So there's an unofficial policy where any book that you find in here, you could take. I could take one after this webinar if I wanted to, as long as you just leave a book. So it's like take a book, leave a book policy. Something else that I really like about this room, I included a picture of the ceiling. It's kind of hard to see, and I don't think you'll see it with the webinar camera, but the ceiling indicates symbols of the original majors at Scripps. So this is one of my favorite rooms on campus because although it's, this is our oldest residence hall, this room is in the middle of the residence hall, but even at the heart of our residential life, you have really still that academic identity. And so every symbol, it represents the, art major, music major, literature, so all of the original majors when Scripps was founded. So that's why I really love this room, because it really represents the blend of your residential experience, but also us as an academic institution, and that living and learning take place inside and outside the classroom. You never stop learning, you never stop living. So I want to talk a little bit more about Scripps itself. So we are a very small college with just about 1,000 students. We're a very diverse place. We have students representing 47 of the US states and 21 countries. I'd say about half students who are coming from the US, about half of them are from outside of California. So we have some geographic diversity coming from the United States as well. Our student to faculty ratio is 10-to-1, and the average class size is 16. So it's a place where classroom discussions are the norm, small discussion-based classes are the norm. It's a place where you get to know your professor. It's a kind of place where if you miss class, your professor notices. Some people love that. Some people are freaked out by that idea. If you want to be a big fish in a small pond, Scripps is this place where that will happen, because we are a very, very small college. My smallest class when I was here was 6 students, and that was a dance class. And that was one of my most favorite classes because, if one person's gone, it really changes the dynamic of the class. And that's how a lot of your classes at a small school are going to be. You represent, you speak up, and you really make the classroom experience what it is. And then at Scripps, we have over 65 majors you can choose from. And these are actually majors that are at Scripps, but also at one of our 4 institutions right across the street from us. I'll talk about that in a future slide. But you have the benefits of going to 5 colleges for the price of 1 when you attend Scripps, because we are part of the Claremont Colleges. And I cannot see my other little bubble because of the thumb. I'm moving myself. Okay. Oh, yes. And the last stat here I want to mention is, as much as students love learning inside of the classroom at Scripps, and Scripps is a very academic place, it's also a place where people think about, what am I going to do when I graduate? How am I prepared for the real world? And a lot of our students are doing internships. You have 3 summers while you're in college, for the 4-year experience. And most of our students are interning at some company or industry that they're interested in pursuing as a career for at least one of those summers. And there's funding to help you fund an internship, let's say if you find one that's unpaid. And there's also things like resume workshops and interview workshops to help you be a competitive applicant for these internships. Okay. A couple of things about our academics. So Scripps, we're strongly rooted in the interdisciplinary humanities. So something that we have is called the three-course core curriculum sequence. Everyone refers to this set of 3 classes as core. So core is a set of 3 classes that all Scripps students take in the first year and a half. I think the most important thing to know about this particular program is that it's a shared experience for every single Scripps student. So what's great about a women's college is that we talk a lot about community and support and empowerment and working with your peers. And it starts in this program because every single student goes through the exact same core sequence together. So you start with core 1, that's the name of the first class. Then you take core 2 and core 3. I won't talk about the whole sequence because then we'll be here for like an hour. But what I will say is that Core 1 is an interesting class because it's all 300-ish first-year students are enrolled in the exact same Core 1 class together, and it alternates on lecture day and discussion day. So when you have lecture day, you attend the lecture day with the entire first-year class of about 300 students, and you listen to a professor give the lecture, which is funny because I feel like that goes against everything I just told you about Scripps having small class sizes and all that good stuff. But the only reason we teach that class in that way is because there are 16 Scripps professors from different academic disciplines who teach the class together. So they represent art, music, math, science, Spanish, and they all teach this class together. And they rotate each week of the fall semester who gives a lecture. And then they also lead small group discussion sections. So you're having this big lecture classroom experience, but really at the heart of Core 1 are those small group discussion sections where you're engaging with one of those professors and learning even more about the topic that is in that class. Every few years, the theme changes. The theme for Core 1 this year is called Truth. So that is the name of the Core 1 class, and you're exploring that concept of truth. How do we know what's real, what's fake, from a variety of different academic lenses. So that's where when I say we have an interdisciplinary approach to learning, it starts with that core class. It's a very interdisciplinary class. If you get excited when a concept in science is something you can explore in art, or if you get excited when history and economics are related, you like interdisciplinary learning. And that's something that's at the heart of what we do. Something else at Scripps is that every single student will do a senior thesis. So it's kind of a theme where we like our students to kind of have something in common with each other. Everyone starts their experience at Scripps in the same way with core, and then at the end of your Scripps experience, everyone has something in common because you're doing senior thesis. So I'd like to say that the beginning and the end of your academic journey at Scripps are pretty much the same for everyone. Thesis is a time for you to become an expert on something within your major or majors. Maybe you'll have 2 majors at Scripps. It's very common to have about 25% of our students have 2 majors. These could be related or not related at all. But when you do the thesis, it's a time for you to become an expert on something within that. So maybe you want to explore, there was a student who explored the gender pay gap in Hollywood. There was a student who explored, cancer research. There was a student who explored different aspects of things influencing media and the environment. So you can explore what you find interesting. So I mentioned this a little bit already. The Claremont Colleges are a group of 5 undergraduate institutions and 2 graduate schools in the city of Claremont in Southern California. So we are a part of the Claremont Colleges. Each college is completely independently run and operated, so we all have our own campuses, our own presidents, our own faculty, our own students, but we share resources. And so what's great about this is it makes Scripps feel small, but it also makes Scripps feel big. So we have about 6,000 students. You can see all the numbers I have on this page. You don't have to remember all of these numbers by heart. Basically, what these numbers are here to represent is that it's a big school and a small school at the same time. So you have 250 clubs that you can join across the 5 schools. You probably shouldn't join all 250, but you have access to join over 200 clubs. So even though we're really tiny, we feel big because of all the resources with 5 schools pulling together. One of the most important things about our consortium, I will say, is the ability to take classes off campus. So I could be a Scripps student and take a class off campus. I did that for about a third of my classes, and that's very common with students at the other colleges. And so I didn't think I introduced them. Pomona, Claremont McKenna, Pitzer College, Harvey Mudd, and Scripps. We are the 5 undergraduate schools that make up the consortium. One other thing that's really important to know about the consortium, again, we could be here for an hour talking about the consortium, but something that I really want to point out is how we do athletics. So a lot of people think, oh, you have 5 colleges, therefore you maybe have 5 sports teams, or maybe you pull together and you have 1 team. We don't do either of those. We actually have 2 athletic teams that play in NCAA Division III. And this is really fun because Scripps is on the team called CMS. That stands for Claremont McKenna, Harvey Mudd, and Scripps. And then what's interesting is that Pitzer College and Pomona College form the other sports team. So if you're a Scripps student, you root for CMS, you play on the CMS team. Your athletic rival is Pomona Pitzer, which is really weird if you think about it, because if you come to Scripps, you probably are going to have a friend who goes to Pomona or Pitzer just because of how close we are to each other and the resources we share. But with athletics, if it's game day, they are not your friends. So your athletic opponent and your best friend could be the same person, which is really exciting. That you have that kind of a funny athletic opportunity in this really collegial consortium. And you can see a couple of other things that make us stand out as well, just with the amount of academic opportunities, even food. There's diversity of food in Claremont. So any student at any of the Claremont colleges can eat at any of the dining halls here. And the dining halls all compete with each other to have the best food, which I think is very exciting. So it really allows for just a lot of breadth of opportunity with where you take your classes, where you eat, what sports games you go to. Tomorrow is actually a CMS versus Pomona Pitzer game, and we're very excited to go to that and cheer on CMS. So there's just a lot of opportunities to make this feel small and big at the same time. I want to talk a little bit more about where we are. So we're in Southern California, and we are just about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic, outside of Los Angeles. So what's great about that, we are in Los Angeles County, but we're not in the heart of LA. So if you wanted to have access to a metropolitan city, but maybe you don't want to be in the city, then I think Claremont would be a good place for you. Claremont is a town of about 35,000 people. It very much is a college town. When you walk around the little downtown area, you can really feel that the colleges take up a big part of this town. So again, even in the town, you're a big fish in a small pond. But if it ever feels too small, then you take the train, you go into Los Angeles, you go to a museum, you go to the beach, you go to Disneyland, whatever you want to do to explore Southern California. And we have opportunities for students to get off campus. So especially if you're coming from far away and you've never been to Southern California, you don't have to worry about figuring out what there is to do, because we help you figure out where to go and what to do. So one of my favorite things we do is called a mystery bus tour, where you get on a bus, you're going somewhere fun in Southern California. It might be to see a play, it might be to go to the beach, it might be to a museum or Disneyland, but we don't tell you, we tell you when you get on the bus. So it's one of those fun things, if you're just like, I'm happy to go anywhere, and then there's some clues leading up to where you might be going, but that's one of the things we do to have students engage with Southern California. Another thing too with weather is that the average temperature year-round is 25 degrees Celsius. So it is warm here, but there's also winter if you miss winter. So just about a 45-minute drive up the mountains from Scripps, you can ski. So one of the colleges here has something called Ski Beach Day, where you go ski in the morning and then you go down to the beach and surf, which you can do when the temperature varies so much because of elevation. And I want to talk about admission and financial aid and scholarships at Scripps. So a couple of things here. We do a holistic review. So holistic may be something that you're familiar with, or maybe you're not, but holistic is this idea that no one specific academic market makes or breaks your admission. There's not one thing that we focus on in holistic review. We look at all aspects of your application to help us get a sense of you as an academic fit with Scripps, but also you as a community fit with Scripps. So again, there isn't like one thing that we're looking for. It's really kind of a whole, looking at you as a whole person, not just a number. So in order to apply to Scripps, we have 3 rounds of admission. We have early decision 1, early decision 2, and regular decision. Early decision 1 is due by November 15th, and then early decision 2 and regular decision are due on the same day, January 3rd. Early decision 1 and 2 are binding agreements. We do not offer any sort of non-binding early action programs. And then also in terms for admission, there's a lot of different things that are, like I said, with holistic review, we look at the types of classes you've taken. We look at what school you go to, the rigor available at your school. We're not comparing you with students from other high schools. We also don't expect that you take advantage of every single challenging class that your high school offers. We're looking to see that you challenge yourself in areas that are of interest to you. Letters of recommendation are also very helpful for us to get a sense of what you're like when you're sitting in the classroom. The transcript and your academic marks can't tell us everything. Letters of rec really help us paint a picture of who you are, how teachers enjoy teaching you, what you're like when you're in the classroom. So all of that is very important in holistic review. And another thing too, I'll point out with testing, we do require the SAT or the ACT. We do not require writing of either exam. You could see our middle 50% score range on the slide as well. And we also allow a self-reporting of the test scores. And we also super score both the SAT and the ACT. And then in terms of affording or paying for Scripps, about a little more than half of our students are on some kind of aid. Our average award amount last year was about $44,000. The cost of attendance to Scripps is about $75,000, and that includes tuition and room and board. We do meet 100% of a family's demonstrated financial need. Financial aid is available for international students, although it is limited. But all of our students are eligible for scholarships. There's nothing that you have to do to be considered for a scholarship. You just submit your Scripps application and you're automatically in the pool for scholarships. These scholarships range from $10,000 US up to $28,000, and they're renewable for the 4 years at Scripps. About 23% of our students last year got a scholarship. So in case you're wondering how likely it is to get one. And if you do receive a scholarship, you are notified at the time of admission. Same thing with if you're applying for a need-based financial aid, we do award that also at the time of admission. I think this may be my last slide. So yes, it is. Okay. So now I believe we have time for questions. I want to thank you again for joining me, and I hope that this was helpful to not just learn about Scripps, but also all the amazing things that go into attending a women's college.
That's terrific, Anna Marie. You covered a lot of territory pretty quickly. One thing I noticed you didn't mention liberal arts, which is often a thorny issue for Canadians because they tend to think liberal arts means artsy kinds of things,
right.
English, music, but it doesn't mean that. You didn't mention it, but just in case anyone asks you or is worried, could you explain it from your point of view?
Yes, and thank you for pointing that out. I definitely should have talked about that. So with liberal arts is a confusing term, as Janet mentioned. It doesn't mean that the school is an art school. It doesn't mean that the school is liberal. It comes from an ancient term that translates to the skills that a person needs to be free in society. I think it was ancient Greek or ancient Rome. And so the idea behind that is that what skills do you need to be a productive person in society? That's pretty much what it boils down to. So liberal arts colleges focus more on soft skills like critical thinking and discussion and leadership, and not so much on pre-professional majors. So Scripps is a liberal arts college, and I'd say we are a very traditional liberal arts college in the sense that we do not offer pre-professional majors. So a lot of students will come up to me and they'll say, oh, you don't have accounting. How am I going to be an accountant? Or I don't see pre-med as a major. How am I going to be a doctor? Or I don't see education. How am I going to be a teacher? And those are all valid questions. At a liberal arts college, you can be all of those careers. But the idea is that any major you have will prepare you for a variety of careers. We don't believe in majors that prepare you just for one career. There's a lot of data out there about how often students change their majors. And so liberal arts colleges want to prepare you to be prepared for a workforce that is diverse, and the idea that you maybe will change your career, what you want to do. So our students do go into those professions, but you can major in whatever you find interesting at a liberal arts college. If you want to be an art major, but then be a doctor, that happens here. If you want to be a teacher, but major in politics and Spanish, you can do that. If you want to be a politician, but major in biology, you can do that. So the idea behind a liberal arts college is that you're prepared for a variety of careers, and we focus on this well-rounded education where you will take classes in all the different disciplines, and you think about things from an interdisciplinary point of view.
Terrific.
Anything else? Okay.
Oh yes, I've got some more. You were mentioning something that a lot of my families that I try to help ask me about, and that is they don't always appreciate that a well-rounded background helps you make the best choice for your career. Mm-hmm. Let us suppose after a year or two of Scripps, I now decide that I definitely want to be in engineering. Be in engineering or any of the STEMs or business administration, or I'm throwing them all together. I want to go to medical school. Mm-hmm. I know Scripps gives lots of support, but will you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like people should ask me that more. I will say, just in general with support after Scripps, and I think how students are prepared for jobs, the support that students get here when they're in college is phenomenal. Because we're so small, you cannot go unnoticed. And that happens with especially thinking about jobs that you want after graduation. There we have career treks where we take students on field trips to meet with other Scripps graduates in politics in Washington, D.C., or maybe in the tech industry in Seattle and San Francisco. So we are actively always thinking about career paths when students are here and connecting them with Scripps alumni and connecting them with just important people in those fields. Because we're so small, the connections here are so strong that a lot of our students are finding jobs because of Scripps connections. Now, after graduation, let's say you change your mind and you I just thought I was going to be a teacher, but now I want to be a doctor. I changed my mind. I would say it's kind of along the similar things. Students still have access to career services that are offered at Scripps even when they're graduates. There's a strong, robust alumni community. Like I said, a women's college is a place where women support other women, and that happens after graduation. I'm part of a Scripps Facebook group where I think it's about 2,000 alumni of Scripps, and every single day somebody is posting, hey, I have this job opportunity at my tech company, or I have this job opportunity at my high school, at my hospital. Send me your resume so I can kick it up the chain, right? Things like that happen every single day, and that's just a small daily example I like to share. And then I think with nitty gritty stuff, like if you, let's say you want to go to medical school in the United States, but let's say you didn't actually take any science classes here. I mean, there's things that we're up against that we can't control, right? You're probably going to have to do some sort of post-bac program to take science classes. So I think if that's the situation where it's a very specific type of graduate program that you would need to maybe take a few more classes to be prepared for. I know that that's something that I think that's a specific example where you would have to enroll in some sort of postgraduate program to be prepared for that type of graduate school. If you never took science classes, for example, but wanted to be a doctor. So I hope that answered some questions in general about the support as an alum. And then also, again, really, our students are going into diverse things. They're going into the tech industry. They're going into medicine. There are a lot of Scripps alumni in a lot of these industries.
Okay, can I be more specific? Let us say, well, and this is true of some of my young women, that while I'm in college, preferably a women's college that's giving me lots of support, and I do decide that I want biochemistry as my major, and I do want to go to medical school right after I graduate. I know that you offer support. Can you tell us a bit more about how you do that? Because I know it's very good.
Yeah, I was actually just talking to our Associate Dean of Faculty a few days ago, and she was talking about how she advises, really how the pre-med process works here. And I've always said, oh, it's very individualized, but after hearing her talk, I'm like, oh, it really is individualized. So it's, at Scripps, because we're so small, I think the biggest takeaway with how we do pre-med advising is that you have somebody asking you the important questions and making sure that you're prepared for medical school applications. A couple of things with how that works is early in your time at Scripps, in your first few weeks as a first year, if you know that you want to go to medical school, you are not only meeting with your academic advisor, but you're also meeting with the pre-health advisor. And that's a separate person from your academic advisor. They do work in tandem, but the pre-health advisor is asking you questions right off the bat, like, where do you want to volunteer? Because she knows that medical schools not only want to see that you have research experience, but more importantly, that you have clinical experience. So you will, if you want to be pre-med at Scripps, having some sort of hospital volunteering or hospital clinical internship experience is so important before you graduate. So those are conversations that you're having with the pre-health advisor. So that way you can do one of those one summer or during the semester before you graduate from Scripps. We have connections with local hospitals to get those clinical experiences done. And then there's the pre-health advisor also writes a letter of recommendation for the students as well, or what she calls like a cover letter. And so that is added to to your medical school application as just to give context about your application and Scripps and all that stuff. And also another thing too, just because we're so small, you know your science professors really well. Your classes are not taught by graduate student TAs here. Your classes are taught by full-time tenured faculty members. And so those are the people who are writing your letters of recommendation. And students often take multiple science classes for pre-health with the same science professors here. So you really get to form strong relationships. So intro biology at Scripps is probably only going to be like 40 students. At a large university, it probably is going to be bigger than 40 students. So your professors know you well and can help make your application stronger in that sense.
As well as write recommendations that you're going to need, because they'll know you by name from day one.
Yeah.
So something that I feel very strongly about. If you want profession, you are better off to start in a smaller environment, get the support that you need to be successful, and then you will work the wonders that you're capable of doing. And I also want to ask you, let us suppose that in my first year or two, I fall madly in love with physics, and I'm really strong in math, and I decide I want to be an engineer. What are the paths starting at Scripps that I could take in order to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will say engineering is probably a unique major that we have here at Scripps because it doesn't operate on a traditional four-year path. So for engineering, we have something called 3-2 engineering. And I know a lot of small colleges like Scripps have this kind of program. So 3-2 engineering, if you say you fall in love with physics and math and you know you want to go into engineering, 3-2 engineering would be your best bet. So what you would do as a 3-2 engineering major at Scripps is you would spend 3 years at Scripps, and then you would spend 2 years at another institution. This second institution tends to be Washington University in St. Louis, Columbia University in New York, and I think sometimes maybe also go to PreMed, which is the one right across the street from us. So you would take the bulk of your intro science and math classes in your first 3 years at Scripps, and then the next 2 years at the second institution, you're taking more engineering specific courses. So and then you graduate in 5 years, but you graduate with 2 bachelor degrees. So a Bachelor of Arts from Scripps and a Bachelor of Science from the second institution.
That's terrific.
Mm-hmm.
From a Toronto perspective, the Claremont Consortium is not that well known. When I'm talking to my students and saying about Harvey Mudd, I always say, well, this is the wonderful engineering school that has a funny name, but no one laughs at the job offers that the graduates get.
Right.
We're not as familiar with the California schools as we may be with the ones in the East.
Right.
But I mean, these are wonderful opportunities. Columbia, we've all heard of, and Washington University in St. Louis, more have heard of. But I think a lot of people haven't heard of Harvey Mudd, but it is probably number 1, if not number 2, ranking undergraduate school for engineering in the United States. So you're not just whistling Dixie here. These are some amazing opportunities. Now, why then would somebody who maybe decides that really the business world is where they want to be, why might they want to start off at Scripps?
That's a great question. I think about this a lot because we often get asked, do you have a business major? Why don't you have a business major? And that goes back to what I said about, we don't have pre-professional majors, and there's a reason for that. I think what's great about our students go into so many different aspects of business, and I think it really goes back to what are the soft skills that you're developing, and what are employers looking for, and what kind of leader do you want to be in business. So when you graduate from Scripps, you have an incredibly strong sense of confidence. You've practiced leading your peers, and you have this ability to know that you use your voice and ask critical questions, be creative. Those are all things that no matter what major you have at Scripps, you're going to have, and those are what employers are looking for. I read something once where it was like, I can teach someone a hard skill like coding, but I can't teach someone a soft skill like collaboration. Teaching someone how to collaborate well and how to lead their peers, you can't really teach it. You just have to be able to practice it and have that skill. And so that's something I think if you want to go into business and go into a small liberal arts college like Scripps, a women's college, those are fantastic skills. Something else I will say too about, I was going to say about business. A lot of our students have on-campus jobs here, but they're not the kind of jobs where you're just like, working at the library, swiping ID cards or something, or swiping books. These are jobs where you are leading aspects of the campus that do not exist without you. So for example, our coffee house is completely student run, from baristas to managers to product suppliers, everything. We have a student store. We have peer health educators in our fitness and wellness center. So much of this campus operates and is run by students. So when you graduate, you've already run a small business. You've done these things, you have these skills because you took up space on this campus and you ran this campus. And that is, and at a large university, I don't know how much you'd be able to do that. At a small school, it runs because you run it. So I think that that's fantastic about when we think about leadership in business, is you have that opportunity to do that here, and you lead your peers and you collaborate and you make things happen.
Very,
And,
very good.
yeah.
Anna Marie, also, I want to ask you about getting there from here, because I have my own favorite way, but how did you get here? Well, no, how would you get to Toronto if you were coming to Toronto?
Just in terms of transportation? Yes.
If you're not sure, I'll tell you.
No, I was just making sure. I didn't know if you, I thought you were asking how I got to Scripps. So like, okay.
Downey's not too far away, so you can get there.
No, yeah. I mean, I think the great thing about where we are is that there's 5 airports you can utilize to get to Scripps and to get, if you're at Scripps, and to get back to wherever you are going. Los Angeles Airport is the most popular with the cheapest flights and the biggest option of flights. The closest one to us is Ontario. Usually if you wanted to fly from Ontario to Toronto, then, and this is our Ontario, the one that's 15 minutes away from us, it's so confusing. You probably would have a layover somewhere. Maybe it'd be in Chicago, or maybe it'd be in Phoenix or something like that, and then Toronto. I actually, when I flew to Toronto, I actually flew out of Orange County Airport, which is about 15 minutes from Disneyland. I had a layover in Las Vegas, and then I was in Toronto. So it was nice. I didn't have to go to LAX. I was able to drive close to my house.
That's what I was hoping you'd mention something like that, because for many of us, just going to LAX is fairly traumatic in itself.
It is. It's so busy.
Ontario, California airport is just so much more relaxed, and
it's so lovely. It's where they film movies because it's empty.
But you do have to fly via Chicago for the most part. But
yeah,